Well, as famous as the world of believers could make her. She found the belief in magic to be naive and stupid. Magic was simply a trick of the eye, or a deep, devious read of a person's unique human condition. Meliny and her alter ego, Maggie, were gifted at both, and it paid far better than pickpocketing asshole lawyers. Meliny's long linen skirt dragged across the floor as she approached the door. She'd been told that her skirts, paisley pashminas, and boho headbands were cliché, maybe even insensitive. But it was enough to give the gypsy illusion to fool even the highest-paying clients. She wished she could sport her preferred outfit of a low-cut bodysuit and trusty, rump-rounding Levi's. Hell, maybe the Reverend was a pervert and would enjoy it. But she was a showman, and every client deserved the same performance, especially those willing to put down a $1,000 deposit. Albeit pricey, she considered herself a moral swindler. She never scammed anyone with the intent to hurt them, and she never took from those who didn't have plenty to spare. When she opened the door, she snapped into prey mode. She always found the phrase, "watch you like a hawk," inaccurate, for it's always the prey animals who are the most diligent. They continually soaked in every detail, sensitive to every small sight, sound, and smell, constantly assessing and deciding. She wondered where her talented prey mode came from. Perhaps trauma. Yeah, probably trauma. But goddamn, did it help her make a good amount of cash. An older man greeted her with a smile. "Maggie, I presume?" He asked. "I presume?" she thought. God, he's pretentious. "Yes," she answered, mirroring his smile. "And you're Reverend Jaakobah?" "Yes," he answered with a slight bow of his head. He motioned to the man and woman standing on each side of him. "These are my colleagues, Helena and Barrett, whom I told you about." Meliny looked between them, quickly soaking in their details, before saying, "Of course, please come in." Her eyes followed them as they made their way inside, taking note of their order. The Reverend came in first, typical for the one in power. The barrel-chested Barrett came next, undoubtedly the muscle of the group. Finally, Helena, whose striking gaze met Meliny's as she clacked in on her red-bottomed shoes. She was clearly the brains and voice of reason. Her heels and tight dress indicated she had no intention of throwing her weight around, but her well-defined arms and tight bun said she had no problem proving she could. Meliny closed the door behind them and motioned toward the round living room table. "Have a seat," she said. They sat down. Meliny sat too and reached for the tarot cards in front of her. "How was your trip?" she asked, to break the ice and by herself. Time to assess them more. Jaakobah reached out to rest his arms on the table and interlaced his fingers. Meliny noticed the cufflinks on his suit. Gold squares with one solid diamond in the middle. She knew the man had money. The website for his church did little to hide that it was a cult. Being a person in power pays well, especially religious power. "If you wouldn't mind, Maggie, Miss Mage," the Reverend said, his cordial tone fading. "I'd rather just get right to it." "Okay," Meliny replied with a nod, unsurprised by his change of tone. She knew he was a man of business the moment she saw his suit. Always look at the suit, her mentor taught her. Always look at the fit and material. If it's boxy or shines like polyester, they're either a teacher or have a lot of court dates. If it's tailored with wood or leather buttons, bleed the man for all the money he has. And Reverend Jaakobah certainly had money. He wore the same Armani suit she'd seen 1,000 times in the business district, not to mention the Italian leather cap-toe Oxford dress shoes she clocked when he walked through the door. She always found them fucking ugly, but rich people often had strange tastes. Seeing all that in the diamond cufflinks, she cursed herself for not charging him more. But $2,000 for what should be no more than an hour of work was nothing to scoff at. "You wanted a tarot reading and then a séance, right?" she asked, reaching for the stack of tarot cards. "That's correct," he answered, observing her. "Okay then," Meliny said. She brought the cards to her lips and blew a quick breath over the top of them, to blow off the stagnant energy. Just another act of showmanship, of course. She began to shuffle the cards. "So, what did you want to ask the cards? Were you wanting to know your future? Questions about love? Career?" "I need to know where something is," he answered. The The cards can't really do something that specific, she said. We can ask them how you can go about finding. What is it you're looking for? Jaakobah's lip twitched with irritation. Don't you know already? He snapped. I researched what you claim you can do. Now I ask you to prove it. What is it I'm looking for? Prove it? She asked, confused. Her mouth twisted with annoyance. I'm confused. Why would you pay me if you didn't already believe me? I want to see it with my own eyes, with my two witnesses. He answered. Meliny quickly looked between Barrett and Helena again. They stared intently at her, eyes mimicking a tiger ready to pounce. A sudden spike of anxiety made Melony's heart flutter. Reverend, she said slowly, gathering herself. She needed him to work with her, or the whole session would be damn near impossible. There are rules to magic, just like there are rules in here. She paused, looking him in the eye and gaining control of the room. She continued, respectfully, this isn't your church. You don't get to have whatever you want, how you want, whenever you want it. So you can work with me or don't, but all deposits are non-refundable. Jaakobah blinked in astonishment. Inside, Meliny smiled too. Herself. She loved being the one to put snobs in their place. Can I ask you a question? Helena asked sharply. Annoyed, Meliny turned toward her. Sure, she said. What is the least taxing and easiest magic you can perform right? Now, so I can get the hell out of this disgusting city? Helena asked. A tarot reading, Meliny answered with a tilt of her head and a scowl. She turned back to Jaakobah. So, would you like one or not? If it's a privacy thing, I get it. You don't have to tell me what you're looking for. Frankly, I don't care. But I need some level of detail so I know where to start. Jaakobah's jaw clenched. He ground his teeth for a moment, thinking. Something was lost in the desert a long time ago, he answered, giving in. It has some artifacts, jewelry that I need to find. If I don't find them, the Reverend's bulldog demeanor changed. His eyes fell to the table as his shoulders slumped. There are people I love that I'll never see again if I don't, he said quietly. Melony's eyes flashed to Helena and Barrett once more. Their gazes fell off to the side as solemn looks overcame their faces. And just like that, Meliny found his Achilles heel and her way deep into the pit of his wallet. We'll do the Celtic cross then, she said. She passed the cards to Jaakobah. Shuffle the deck, she said. Jaakobah did as told, and she continued, cut the deck into 3 parts and say, what do I need to do to find my buried treasure? Jaakobah made a small huff of annoyance. What do I need to do? To find my buried treasure? He said, unenthusiastic. Now stack them back together. He did as he was told once more, and then Meliny grabbed the stack and placed it in front of her. In the middle of the table, just to her left, she pulled out 6 cards face down and laid them in the shape of a cross with 2 cards in the middle. She also laid the middle 2 cards in a cross shape. Then she laid 4 more cards in a vertical line to the right of the cross. With that, the show began. We'll start with the cross, Meliny said, motioning to the cards on the left. It'll give us a general overview of your situation. Meliny grabbed the bottom middle card of the cross. The present, she said, flipping it over. The card showed a man sitting up in bed with his head in his hands. 9 swords hung on the wall next to him. 9 of swords, she said, gathering all the details of him she'd singled out. You feel alone. You feel like up to this point, you've failed. Her eyes flicked back up to him to see his reaction. That he had the same solemn look as before proved her correct. She continued, you're plagued by fear and guilt, maybe about something shameful. Jaakobah's lip twitched. Meliny placed her hand on the second middle card. The challenge, something you need to resolve. She flipped it over to reveal a cloaked man with his head hung. One hand held a walking stick, while the other held up a lantern. The hermit, she said. You're finding it hard to go within to know what's right. You're having trouble hearing your inner voice. It's hard for you to be alone long enough to give yourself the space to find it. She watched him carefully for his reaction. He brought his hand to his mouth and placed his elbow on the table, brow furrowed in thought. Meliny placed her fingers on the card on the left arm of the cross. The past, she said, and flipped the card. The picture showed a knight with a skull face on a white horse. A body lay underneath him. She paused for a moment, letting the image sink in. "Death," she said. It was now that she knew she had him locked in. Usually I'd say this doesn't necessarily mean physical death, but in your case, I'd say it's accurate. Am I right? Jaakobah finally met her gaze. She couldn't determine if he was holding back anger or sadness more. Something important ended, and something new has started. She finished, reaching for the next card. "The future," she said, as she flipped the card that made the right arm of the cross. The image showed a tall tower on jagged rocks. It contained a chaotic scene of lightning, fire, and rain, and two people fell from the tower to their deaths. The tower. It shows a scene of chaos and destruction. Meliny smiled inwardly once again. Usually she could stretch her reasoning to make the cards intertwine, but today they seemed to be doing all the heavy lifting themselves. She continued, "A building built on an unstable foundation. It suggests that your journey is out of desperation. Your relationships with your loved ones are in peril if you don't change your values and do some damage control in response to what's already been done." Meliny watched Jaakobah grimace as he repositioned himself in his seat. Customers always became antsy when she could make the cards call them out on bad behavior, so she allowed herself to sport a smug look. Meliny then grabbed the card at the top of the cross. Above, "This card will symbolize your aspirations, what you consciously desire," she said, then flipped the card. The picture showed an upside-down image of two poor vagrants in rags walking in the snow past a stained glass window with 5 pentacles. "5 of Pentacles reversed," she said. "You outwardly desire stability in all aspects of your life. You wish to recover what you've lost. Maybe you even want forgiveness." She watched sadness creep onto Jaakobah's face once more. She made a note to keep working the lost love angle. Meliny went to flip over the bottom card of the cross, but paused. She cleared her throat, and a tremendous wave of lightheadedness flowed through her limbs. She shook her head as she brushed off the strange, fleeting feeling. "Below, what's in your subconscious mind," she said, then flipped the bottom card. The image showed a man carrying 5 swords, with 2 standing on the ground next to him. "7 of Swords," she said. This time she couldn't help but snicker. "You're hoping to get away with something, you're scheming, and you're confident about your deception." The Reverend's eyes shot daggers at the cards. Meliny could sense the anger boiling just underneath his skin. She quickly motioned to the vertical line of cards to her right. As much as she disliked him, she still wanted him to be satisfied with his reading. Those who leave feeling better always leave a generous tip. "The staff," she said. "These cards give you a broader context of your situation." Meliny's hand flushed with a sudden ache as she reached for the staff's bottom card. She quickly opened and closed her hand a couple of times. A strange, dull anxiety lurked under her skin. "The advice. How to address your current challenges," she said, then flipped the card over. The image showed the body of a dead man on the ground, blood pooling away from him as 10 piercing swords lined up his back. "10 of Swords," she said. Meliny thought of the bleakness of his reading so far and how illogical it was to have such bad luck of a draw in a spread with so many cards. She continued, "This card is telling you to end things. It signifies finality. If you don't end something, your deception, you might experience a great loss. If you don't, you'll hit rock bottom." Meliny didn't bother to look up at him, as she knew it couldn't be any better than before. Her heart fluttered again as the light headed. Feeling waxed and waned, she quickly moved on to the next card, brushing her feelings off to dehydration. She grabbed the next card up the staff and said, "External influences, things outside of your control." She flipped it over to reveal a heart with 3 swords piercing through it. A sour, sinking pit rose in her stomach. She tried her best to stifle her sudden illness. "3 of Sword," she said, looking back at Jaakobah. "Betrayal," she continued, her eyes never straying from Jaakobah. She knew both Helena and Barrett shifted uncomfortably in their seats as they looked at one another with accusatory looks. "One you won't see coming," Meliny pushed out as her throat went dry. She broke her gaze as Jaakobah's eyes stirred a feeling of danger inside her. "And grief," she added, looking down at the cards, trying to break the tension. "You can't stop the grief you feel, but you can choose to move on with it and into your future. Meliny reached for the third card on the staff. This time, the bones in her whole arm ached as she approached it, like the achiness of a fever. A subtle, high-pitched ringing rose in her ears. "Your hopes and fears," she said, flipping over the card. The image showed a standing woman, bound and blindfolded, surrounded by 8 upright swords. "8 of swords," she said with a shaky breath, racking her brain for the source of this sudden dread. It had been years since she'd had a panic attack. Why was one coming on now? She continued, "You're worried about feeling trapped or getting caught. You fear helplessness, feeling powerless. You hope to take control. You want freedom from whatever's weighing you down." She didn't look up at him. She knew the angry look on his face hadn't faded, and she wanted more than anything to end the session and lie down before she passed out. There was only one card left. Meliny shook with a sudden wave of terror. Whispers rose in and out of her ears. Sudden gushes of air or voices. She shook her head, realizing her strange movements must look odd to the 3 of them. Maybe that helped sell the experience. But Meliny stared at the last face-down card. She fought her mental chains to reach for it. Her arm felt heavy, aching to a near unbearable degree. Fear bloomed in her chest, and she wondered what the fuck was happening to her. Why did she feel like this? It was just a reading. She'd done this thousands of times. The ringing in her ears got louder. "The outcome," Meliny said, hovering her fingertips above the card. It radiated heat like a red-hot stove burner. "What the fuck?" Meliny whispered to herself. She took a deep breath and flipped the card. A searing pain shot up her fingers. She jerked her hand back, staring at her fingers. They were unscathed. When she looked at the others, she noticed their eyes locked on. The table, the color drained from their faces. She looked down. The image of Baphomet stared up at her. He sat on a throne. 2 demon-horned humans at his feet. "The devil," she said. Although the ringing and lightheadedness persisted, she cleared her throat, trying to steady herself. Nothing was happening. The cards weren't real. There was no reason this reading should feel different than any other. Right? She pushed through the looming dread to take back control. People think Baphomet is the main character to be afraid of in this picture. He's not, she said. She hovered her index finger over the bottom of the card. It was, now cool to the touch. You see the humans? They're enslaved to the devil. Their horns show that the more time they spend with him, the less human they become. The flames and grapes at the tips of their tails show an addiction to power, to luxury. She looked up at him, smug. It suggests you might be a slave to opulence. Meliny's breath hitched as Jaakobah stared at her. The ringing in her ears grew louder. The whispers returned. His gaze pulled her into a choking feeling of dread. But despite everything, she pushed on. In reference to your question, it suggests your quest for that buried treasure might leave you empty. You said it's for someone you love. The devil card says this whole pursuit is nothing more than a desire for selfish gratification. As she spoke, the ringing got louder, almost louder than her voice. Her blood turned cold. A shadow seemed to rise around them. Her gaze locked with his like he had her chained. The whispers and ringing peaked. Then just for a second, a horned devil's image flashed over Jaakobah's form, like his real self had slipped out from under his skin suit. Above all the noise, a whisper cut through it. Run. That's enough, Barrett's voice boomed through the room. It snapped Meliny out of her trance. The ringing, the whispers, the sick feeling, gone in an instant. We're running out of time, Barrett said, annoyed. Still shaken, Meliny began gathering the cards, wondering what the fuck had just happened and why the others didn't seem to notice a thing. I don't pick the cards, she said. I just pull and relay the message. Sometimes you'll get readings you don't like. Normally, she'd give a softer, more customer-friendly answer, but she was still trying to process whatever psychotic episode had just hit her. Jaakobah leaned in. His glare froze her in place. "Get on with the séance," he growled. "Sure," Meliny said quietly. "Let me get set up." She placed the cards on the nearby bookshelf, dimmed the lights and grabbed a pendulum, matches, and 3 candles with holders. She lit the candles in a triangle at the center of the table. Then she placed her prized pendulum in the middle. The contraption was all gold-colored. The round base had YES on the left and NO on the right. A 7-inch rod stood at the back. An arm extended from the top of the rod, with a golden, oval-shaped piece of metal dangling from a chain. The point hovered between yes and no. Meliny sat back down and cleared her throat, still unable to shake. The dryness. "Who is it you want to contact?" she asked Jaakobah. A solemn look crossed his face. "My wife," he answered quietly, eyes half-lidded, fixed on the pendulum. Meliny's eyes flicked to Barrett and Helena, who exchanged grave looks, then quickly looked away. Her mind reeled, trying to piece things together. "All right," she continued. "Did you bring some of your wife's belongings?" "No." Jaakobah reached into his pocket and pulled out a small blue Tiffany & Company box. Meliny raised a brow. His wife had exquisite taste. He opened it and set 2 pieces of jewelry on the table. A pair of platinum drop earrings with diamonds at the ends, and a thin platinum necklace with a small, elegant diamond in the same style. Meliny stretched out her arms and rested her palms up on the table. "I need everyone to join hands." Helena rolled her eyes. Meliny pretended not to notice. "For best results, it's important for everyone to be open to communication," she added. After Helena and Barrett reluctantly took her hands, she asked, "Jaakobah, and what's your wife's name?" "Lorelei," he said. His voice rumbled in her chest. Prickling swept her skin at the sound of the name. Meliny gave her head a subtle shake to ward it off. Just 15 more minutes, and she could get them the hell out and sleep off whatever bug had gotten into her. "Everyone close your eyes and take a few deep breaths," she instructed, waiting as they complied. She let the silence sit, then continued, her voice calm and deliberate, every word carefully placed. "Imagine roots growing from your feet into the ground below. We are one with the room and the energy in it. We call upon the spirit of Lorelei Jaakobah to communicate with us in any way that you can." Meliny allowed another calculated moment of silence before continuing. "We wish to speak with Lorelei Jaakobah. Lorelei, are you here?" Barrett let out a small huff of annoyance. Meliny scowled, eyes still closed, and whispered, "Please be quiet." She continued, "Lorelei, can you give us a sign?" With this, the show began. In the immense silence beneath the table, Meliny cracked the joints in her toes. She felt Helena's and Barrett's hands tense. She allowed herself a small smile, knowing they had already fallen for one of the oldest tricks in the book. "Lorelei," Meliny called again, feigning excitement. "Make another sound if that's you." She cracked her toes once more. Then she opened her eyes and said, "We've made contact. You can open your eyes but keep the circle closed." The 3 of them did as instructed. Meliny continued, "Your husband David is here. He wishes to speak with you." A cold, sharp wave of dread flushed through her as she finished her sentence. She swallowed hard, trying to ignore the cool, swirling pit in her stomach. She wished for the Xanax tucked away in her bathroom medicine cabinet. She cursed herself for not taking one before they arrived. The air in the room felt dense, resting heavily on Meliny's limbs. She fought against her body and mind to move the show along. "Lorelei," she continued, "I have a pendulum here on the table you can use to communicate with us. Can you move it for me?" Here, Meliny pulled her next trick. The tablecloth hid the small hole in the middle of the table. While the pendulum ball was made of nickel, the rest was aluminum, leaving the ball as the only magnetic part of the contraption. Under her long skirt, she wore a garter at the knee with a magnet glued to it. As she asked questions, she could use the magnet to sway the pendulum to yes or no as she pleased. Meliny stared at the pendulum, and the others followed suit. Using slight, unnoticeable movements, She adjusted her knee as the ball followed it over to the yes side of the stand. Barrett let out a small, surprised gasp. Helena tilted her head as she narrowed her eyes. But Jaakobah, seemingly unimpressed, simply stared at the pendulum with his lip twisted. Before Meliny could speak, Jaakobah said, "Lorelei, from the jewelry on the table, move the one I bought you for your birthday." Meliny stifled her anger. The soft ringing in her ears grew again. "That will be too much for a spirit to do," she advised, trying to gain control again. "The pendulum is easier. Yes or no questions." "Of course it is," Helena said with a scoff. Meliny shot Helena a scowl as her heartbeat thumped in her ear. She heard another whisper, unsure if it came from Barrett or Jaakobah's direction. "Are the earrings what I bought you for your birthday?" Jaakobah asked. Meliny felt as though a glass box was closing in on her. The wind, like rustling, grew in her ears once more. "This is stupid," Helena groaned. "Shut up," Jaakobah hissed at her. "She has to be faking it," Helena snapped back. Meliny let out a sharp gasp and her eyes widened. A cold, heavy feeling pressed down on her shoulders. 5 points gripped around them as though heavy, taloned hands grasped her. The feeling tore the air from her lungs. She looked at Jaakobah and the others as they stared at her. Her terrified face no doubt pulled in their attention. And then the necklace slid a few inches toward her on the table. Silence shot through the room. They all stared at the necklace, their jaws agape. Meliny's breath shuddered as she felt hands clenched around her body. The ringing grew louder and the whispers rustled more. Jaakobah's face changed to a look of astonishment, hope, and fear. He looked around them and up into the air. "Darling, are you with... Is Katie there with you?" he asked, voice dripping with desperation. Meliny, trying to convince herself she was merely on the edge of a psychotic episode, tried to speak over the noise around her. "Sorry, it's hard to summon more than one spirit at a time." But Jaakobah continued as though she had said nothing. "Do you know where exactly I can find the other artifacts?" he asked. The pendulum swung and stopped over the NO. But Meliny hadn't moved her knee. Her jaw trembled as she watched a steady breeze flow through Helena and Barrett's hair. But this time, even they took notice. Jaakobah scoffed, not out of disbelief, but in frustration. He looked around them as if searching for the spirit. "Do you actually know, and you're just not telling me?" he barked. The pendulum swung over to the yes. The entire pendulum stand started to vibrate, shaking the table underneath them. Meliny's knuckles turned white as she clenched onto Barrett and Helena's hands, fear tightening the tendons in her arms. Her breath quickened as her eyes bounced around the shaking table. The ringing grew even louder, but a whisper from unseen lips. She swore touched her ear, whispered, "Run!" Jaakobah boomed, his voice rising in anger. "I need to know. I need to know for us, for all three of us." While the table still shook, all three flames on the candles blew out simultaneously. Meliny watched as even Barrett and Helena looked afraid. The breeze in the room grew into wind. The papers on the shelves scattered across the room, and the framed artwork fell from the walls. The anger fell from Jaakobah's face. He gave a small smile. Desperation rose in his voice as he asked, "Don't you even miss me?" The pendulum shot over to number. Meliny gasped as her head shot up, her body twitching. Her vision went black, eyes rolling into the back of her head. Searing pain shot through her as though something had torn her open and crawled inside. In her mind, out of the darkness, a woman crept into view. Those same invisible lips pressed to her ear screamed, "Run!" An unseen force pressed against their chests, shooting them backward out of their chairs. The force pulled Meliny out of her trance as she tumbled against the hard, polished concrete floor. The vibration and wind stopped, the usual everyday sounds of. The room emerged, along with their groans of pain. Meliny winced as she struggled to get to her feet, still out of breath. When she finally stood, she stared at Jaakobah as he made his way to his feet. Meliny trembled. "What the fuck?" she said, eyes welling with tears. "What did you do?" she asked, terror plastered on her face. Jaakobah did nothing but give her a dark, knowing look. Meliny, struggling to regain her composure, said, "You need to go." She pointed toward the door. "All of you, I'll give you your money back." She shouted, "Just get the fuck out." Barrett looked at Jaakobah, and he responded with a nod. Melanie's stomach turned sour as Barrett sprinted toward her. She turned to try to run away, but he caught her before she could get sufficient footing. She tried to scream, but his hand covered her mouth before any sound came out. She struggled under his strong arms, desperate to escape him. Then Helena came toward her. Barrett held her as still as he could as Helena reached into her purse. Barrett moved his hand, but Helena quickly placed hers over Melanie's mouth with a wet rag in her palm. The rag radiated a strong, sharp smell, and soon Melanie's vision went white as she slipped out of consciousness. Tension choked the air inside the massive SUV. Neither Jaakobah, Helena, nor Barrett said a word. Jaakobah and Helena stared out their windows while Barrett kept silent attention on the windshield as he drove. Finally, Jaakobah broke the silence. "I suppose neither of you doubts me now?" he said, his sudden words forcing them to face the reality of what they just witnessed. Barrett stayed quiet for a moment, then chuckled. "Seems like she was worth the hassle of driving all the way to California," he said, but his humor did little to ease the tension. Helena continued to stare out the window. She picked at her cuticles until they bled, a habit she thought had died years ago with her horrendous teenage years. She tried hard to bury the memory of Melanie's apartment. She couldn't remember another time she'd felt genuine terror, but as the saying goes, there's a first time for everything. "At least we know she's damn good at practical effects," she said. "Oh, come off it, Helena," Jaakobah said with a snarl that snatched her attention. A grave intensity overcame his face as he added, "She's the real deal. We all saw and felt the same thing." He rubbed his chin in thought as he turned back to the window. "No one will ever doubt me now." Helena looked up at the rearview mirror to see Barrett's eyes staring back into hers, a habit they'd developed over years of working together. Usually their eyes locked when Jaakobah made 67 outlandish statements, allowing them to laugh quietly with one another. But this time, Barrett's expression showed a lost man desperate for understanding. But Helena had no idea what the fuck actually went down in that apartment. She asked a question she already knew the answer to, an answer that terrified her. "You really think that was Lorelei?" she asked. She tried to swallow, but her throat had gone dry. "And Katie?" Jaakobah rubbed his hand over his face. "I wish it wasn't," he said, exasperated. His lip trembled as he added in a shaking voice, "They're so angry with me." He closed his eyes for a moment, trying to gather his crumbling composure. "I spent my whole life obsessed with researching the miracles of heaven and earth, that I neglected the people I loved the most." Helena watched his face intently as his eyes glossed over, and he slyly tried to rub the tears away. He sniffled as he continued. "They haven't forgiven me, even in death. But that'll change." He turned in his seat and looked back at the trunk of the SUV. "You're going to help me with that, aren't you?" he asked. Helena looked behind them as well. Meliny, blindfolded, lay on the floor of the trunk area. She was unmoving, her wrists tied behind her, her ankles and knees bound together. Duct tape sat over her mouth. The sevoflurane had knocked her out quickly, but the B-52 injection should keep her quiet for most of the ride. At least Helena's nursing degree wasn't going to waste. "But how do you know she can do something like that?" Helena asked, still trying to make sense of the séance. "I mean, she genuinely looked surprised at what happened today. What if she can't pull something like that off? The fact that we drove out there instead of flying means you were planning on taking her back with us regardless. I know we're desperate to increase our numbers, but I don't think kidnapping is very diplomatic, do you?" "The time for diplomacy is in the past," Jaakobah answered. "Can't you feel it, Helena? The world is changing. Something is shifting." A dark look overcame him. "She will perform, or she will be punished severely." Helena twinged in surprise, staring at him, seeing a different side to a man she'd known for many years. Jaakobah always sought real magic, but he'd never gone this far. "How so?" she asked, wary of the answer. Jaakobah looked at her intently and coldly as he answered, "Death." Helena glanced up at the rear-view mirror, but saw no comforting eyes there to greet her. For the first time in their trio's history, she felt sick as she found herself alone and in the dark. The rest of the car ride back to Phoenix remained silent. Meliny faded in and out of consciousness through the long trip. Her muscles ached from the ropes that bound her. In her brief moments of wakefulness, she wondered just what the fuck she could do to get away from the deranged trio. She was always one step ahead in her cons, but this time she felt powerless. And what the fuck happened during the reading and séance? The memory turned her stomach into an icy pit as she recalled the spectral hands on her shoulders. A wave of fear ran through her as she remembered the dead woman's dulled, lifeless eyes staring through her, warning her of Jaakobah. When the car finally stopped and she heard the trunk open, she pretended to be unconscious. She groaned as someone hauled her up and over their shoulder. No doubt Barrett, the mountain of muscle. Mind and body still woozy, she couldn't even manage to writhe in protest. She heard a door open and felt them descend a few stairs. They walked a bit further, then another door opened. After a few more steps, Meliny hit a cold, hard surface, and Barrett dropped her like a sack of potatoes. Then someone tore the blindfold from her face. She groaned as she pretended to wake, squinting and adjusting to the light. The figures of Barrett, Helena, and Jaakobah came into view. She tried to look around, but the flash of a switchblade in Barrett's hand caught her attention. She gasped, a stomach-turning terror shooting through her. He walked toward her and sliced the connecting rope of her hog tie. She twinged under the sudden release of pressure in her shoulders and legs. Though her wrists were still bound behind her back and her ankles were still tied, she was able to stretch out her legs. She furiously wiggled herself into a seated position. She flinched away as Barrett reached forward and ripped the tape off her mouth. She cried out as it undoubtedly tore a layer of skin off her lips. She looked at Barrett with a snarl and said, "Thanks, asshole." She cried out again as Barrett struck her with the back of his hand, smashing it against her mouth. She tasted copper as a small line of blood began to run from her lower lip. She shook, reality sitting heavily upon her. Just how far their violence could go. Her eyes flashed around the room as she searched for a way out. A single fluorescent light flickered above them. The unfinished concrete floor sat cold underneath her. Aside from the four of them, nothing else occupied the room except for a cot on the floor and a bucket in the corner. The only exit stood just beyond her three captors, a nearly full glass door with a deadbolt. She saw movement on the side of the door, likely a guard standing watch. "Hello, Miss Mage," said Jaakobah in a somewhat cheerful voice. Meliny said nothing. His cheerful demeanor vanished at her. Continued silence. "This is the situation, young lady," Jaakobah began, his hands behind his back as he lectured. "You have shown magical abilities that are of interest to me." He crouched down in front of her. She shuddered at the unstable. Danger in his eyes. "Now tell me what it was you did back there. How long have you been able to speak to the dead?" Desperation flowed through her. "I don't know," she said, trembling. "You have to believe me." She knew her pleas would fall on deaf ears, but she had to try. I'm a fraud. Everything I do is just psychology and sleight of hand. Please, you have to believe me." Jaakobah stood, eyes bearing down on her. "I am not a person you want to lie to." His dark expression sent her animal instincts into a flurry. In just a short time, she'd learned quite a lot about this man. He had resources and power. He was also insane and desperate, and insanity mixed with desperation made for a dangerous man. "I told you I don't have powers. I'm a fraud," she pleaded again, her voice cracking. I don't know what happened today. A shared hallucination? Gas leak? I don't know, but I didn't do anything. I swear." Jaakobah stared down at her, unmoved by her words. Meliny growled in frustration as she yelled, "Please, God damn it, there's no such thing as fucking magic." In a flash, the back of another hand smacked hard against her mouth. She fell over, her warm, wet blood now filling her mouth. Jaakobah knelt down again. She yelped as he grabbed a handful of her hair and yanked it back. "You will not take the Lord's name in vain in my house of worship. Do you understand?" he hissed, bringing his face close to hers. He continued, "If there is a single drop of magic power in your blood, I will find it. And if that drop of blood needs to be dredged up, then so be it." Meliny's head slammed against the floor as Jaakobah shoved her back down, releasing her hair. He stood and walked toward the door, motioning for Barrett and Helena to follow. The two guards on the other side of the door noticed their approach. and opened it. Without looking back, Jaakobah said to the guard, "Peters, Evans, soften up our new guest a bit, won't you? Let me know if she says anything of value." Jaakobah, Helena, and Barrett left, and the guards entered. Meliny, still lying on the floor, spat out the pooling blood in her mouth. "Nice boss you got there," she said with a little smile. One of the men had undone his belt, doubled it over, and clenched. "The Reverend said I'm not to be talking to you," he said. Meliny responded, "You do everything your boss tells you?" "He is not my boss, he is my savior," he answered. "Sometimes, and like today, he is a kind savior." His words and the evil grin on his face took Meliny aback. Rev had money and a large workforce. He was also a cult leader. He had manic followers with cruel intentions. They spoke no more. The only other sounds that spilled from that cold room were the cracks of his belt and Meliny's cries of pain. Time slipped away from her as her torture went on for what seemed like hours. Evans and Peters went from the belt to waterboarding when Meliny didn't give them answers they liked. They finally pushed her out of the chair and tossed the bucket to the side, letting the water spill over the floor. Meliny's head bobbed as she tried to sit up, but the searing pain of the welts and her overdose of adrenaline made the world around her spin. Her face was now numb from the cold and the seemingly endless water. She decided to lay still, pretending to be unconscious, hoping her two tormentors would leave her in peace. They picked up their supplies and chatted casually as though torture was just another daily chore. Evans rolled his shirt cuffs back down and asked Peters, "You looking forward to this year's retreat?" Peters answered with a smile, "I really am. I think this is finally our year." Evans walked over to Meliny. He tugged on the ropes around her, wrists and ankles, checking that they were still tight. "I hope so. If we finally find the Lost Dutchman Mine, maybe we can hold our yearly retreat somewhere near a beach instead of on top of that damn mountain." "Good point," Peters said with a chuckle. "And after we find it, the church coffers will be overflowing. Maybe enough that Rev will spring for us all to go to Hawaii." Meliny thought this was some light chatter, considering they just waterboarded an innocent woman. These guys had done this before, or maybe worse. Evans stood, satisfied with the ropes. "Rumor has it that the Reverend finally got his hands on the Dutchman's diary," he said as he walked toward the door. "Oh, so that's why we did so much work on that old man, to soften him up so Jaakobah could get answers," Peter said with a smile, following Evans. "We do God's work down here," Evans boasted. He held open the door for Peters and said, "And God works in mysterious ways." "Amen, brother," Peters answered. With that, they left her. She shook with pain, skin stinging from the icy water and welts. They locked the door and made their way down the hall. Meliny tried to shift her focus from her pain to their conversation, wondering just what the fuck she'd gotten herself into this time and what the fuck she was going to do to get out of it. Warwick waited in his truck in the back parking lot of Jaakobah's church. A sudden dread plowed through him at the thought of meeting with Jaakobah. Nerves overcame him, and questions plagued his mind. Why was Jaakobah searching for him? More importantly, why did this meeting feel like a trap? Warwick decided to indulge in one more delay before heading in. He wanted to verify that Jaakobah was telling the truth about where he got the ring, so he looked up the phone number for the pickle barrel and called. A man on the other end answered. "Pickle barrel, this is Dino." "Hello, sir. My name's Warwick," he answered. "I wanted to ask about a certain ring a friend of mine said he got from you. I wanted to see if you had any more like it." "Sure thing, Mr. Warwick. Can you describe the ring to me?" It looked kind of spooky. The front had a bunch of people in robes on it, with crosses on the side, and a specific horseshoe-like decal on the top. "What is the name of your friend?" Warwick hesitated. "Reverend David Jaakobah." Dino went quiet. "What does he want?" The cheer in his voice disappeared. "What?" Warwick said, confused. "Why are you calling?" Dino asked, cutting him off. Desperation dripped from his breathy words. "I haven't done anything. I haven't told anyone, I swear." "Sorry, I'm confused," Warwick responded. "He didn't tell me to call you or whatever. He's not even my friend, really. I just met him once and asked him where he got his ring. and he mentioned you. A moment of quiet fell between them again. Dino? Warwick asked after a moment. Yes, Dino stammered, still quiet. I'm sorry. I must be thinking of someone else. He cleared his throat. What exactly are you looking for? Do you know who the designer of that ring is? Warwick asked. I have a necklace of his already. I'm looking to get more. I've been looking forever. I'd pay almost anything, within reason, of course. Of course, Dino answered. Uri Zilberstein is the name of that designer. German man from the late 1800s. Each one of his pieces has that little horseshoe design on it somewhere. His calling card. You got any more jewelry of his I can take off your hands? Dino hummed to himself, then said, I might still have it, but I'd have to check my private stock, and I've got a huge private stock at my place. It'll take me hours to sort through it to find the ring, and I've got lots of paperwork to do. Warwick was thrilled the ring did exist, yet terrified it might soon be in his grasp. He felt guilty for putting Dino out so much. I'll make your efforts worthwhile, Dino, he said. I'm a bit of a drive from you, so if you can get me that ring within the next 2 days, I'll add an extra percentage. Tell you what, Warwick, I'll look for it as soon as I get home tonight. So come by the shop in 2 days. After you look it over, we'll talk about the price. Fair? Works for me, Dino. Thank you, Warwick said. They hung up. Dino's worried tone at the mention of Jaakobah's name unsettled him. He looked over at the church, took a deep breath, got out of his truck, and made his way to the door. As Warwick walked inside, the smell of old wood and stale air filled the room. He stepped forward to the front desk. Although the church was lovely, Warwick noticed its age and need for repairs, including a new paint job. As he approached the receptionist's desk, he looked at the dirty baseboards. Hello, dear. How can I help you today? The receptionist behind the desk asked. Warwick had to ask her to repeat herself because she spoke through a mouthful of what looked like uncooked ramen noodles. She ate it like a cracker. A glance showed him the unwrapped 10-cent wrapper she had carelessly tossed to the side. Hello, Warwick said, pretending not to be disturbed. I have an appointment with Reverend Jaakobah. My name is Warwick. She took an enormous bite of her snack, staring blankly at him. After chewing a couple of times, she jerked her head and directed Warwick to a set of chairs along the wall. Warwick went to sit down while she picked up the phone. Reverend, you have a Warwick here to meet you. A moment later, she hung up and said, Warwick, you can head on in. She gave him another jerk of her head toward an office door to her right, and Warwick made his way to it. While making the short walk, he heard her taking another bite of the uncooked ramen. Warwick opened the heavy door and went into Jaakobah's office. He was met by the same mysterious, older, well-kept man he remembered. The man greeted Warwick with a toothy smile and an outstretched hand, motioning him toward his desk. Come in, he said. Warwick closed the door behind him and took in the room around him. He marveled at a crystal bust statue that resembled Jaakobah. It sat on a magnificent cherrywood table. The whole office was full of expensive items. Welcome, Warwick. Please have a seat, he said, motioning again to the chair in front of him. Warwick did so and looked at the large, polished wooden desk and almost throne-like chair behind it. He was surprised by how lavish the office was compared to the rest of the building. Then he thought about how carelessly Jaakobah had tossed him $10,000. It became clear this man had money and chose to spend it on himself. That thought only reinforced his notion of Jaakobah as a selfish jerk. Just the same, when Jaakobah spoke, Warwick listened. So, Warwick, I guess you're curious about why I've taken such an interest in you. To be honest, I've spent a lot of time and man-hours tracking you down. Warwick had many questions, but his first was, how did you track me down? Jaakobah chuckled. Needed a tow truck lately? Warwick was surprised by that answer. Actually, I have, but we managed to jump my truck instead of taking a tow. So it was that tow truck driver that told you about me? He didn't understand the connection at all. That guy Matt was a jerk, but he'd helped him out while he was in a tight spot. Matt's wife is a devout follower of mine. She reached out to me. Warwick was surprised that such an innocent encounter with a tow truck driver could lead to all this. He said in an assuming voice, so how did my truck needing a tow lead to the truck driver telling his wife something that led you to tip me $10,000. Jaakobah said, apparently you spun a yarn that impressed him. Something about using a wishbone-shaped stick to find water? He let out a resounding, sarcastic bellow at the end of his statement. To Warwick, it sounded like pure mockery. Warwick thought, so this asshole has so much money he can throw away 10 grand just to get me to sit right here in this expensive, comfortable chair, just to mock me? To Warwick, this whole thing was ridiculous. He dismissed the mocking. He came here for a reason. Warwick said, it was a long drive, and I decided to entertain my savior. No reason for all your theatrics. He finished the statement with a slight smile and a dismissive wave of his hand. He even leaned back in his chair and seemed to relax. Inside, though, Warwick was fuming. He saw the alluring ring he had sought flash past Jaakobah's face on his finger while he laughed. Warwick disliked pointless small talk, but was an expert at it when he decided it was worth it. This is a really nice office. It's a shame the rest of the building is in disrepair. His words felt like pinpricks under Jaakobah's skin. How dare this little pissant insult me in my own house? Warwick caught another glimpse of Jaakobah's ring. The Reverend talked, but the words came across muffled in his ears. He found himself staring at the ring as a strange feeling rose in his chest, like a string stitched to his skin was pulling him toward it. Despite all the reason yelling at him from the deepest part of his mind, he knew he needed to get that ring. He knew he needed to have it today, by any means. What? Jaakobah asked, taken aback. The ring, he added. Do you care if I take a look at it? I can't. Get over how beautiful it is. With a bit of reluctance, Jaakobah did. As Warwick studied it, Jaakobah's lips pulled into a small, sly smile. He said, you know, Warwick, I think finding water isn't the only special thing you can do. Warwick froze. He looked at Jaakobah with narrow eyes. I don't know what you mean. Jaakobah tapped a finger on his desk a few times, thinking, like, he was working out how he wanted the conversation to go next. After the first time we met, I did some digging on you, he continued, watching as Warwick stiffened. I know. It's not very polite, but you intrigued me. I knew you were special. Warwick stayed quiet. Jaakobah continued, his voice now laced with pity. The first thing I found was your family's murder. To be so young and witness that, I can't imagine how hard that must have been. Warwick's breath hitched at the mention of his family, but Jaakobah's words unearthed an idea inside him that he couldn't quite shake. Why did you say murder? He asked. They were killed by a bear. Jaakobah looked at him with a tilt of his head. And you believed that? Well, why wouldn't I? Warwick stammered, images flashing through his mind that he wanted to keep buried. You didn't see the bodies. Only an animal could have done that. Warwick twinged at the response. The world's full of true crime savages these days, Jaakobah continued. Things like that always get leaked to the internet. That's so fucked, Warwick said with a snarl, anger boiling inside him. And you really don't remember how it happened? Jaakobah asked, clearly doubting him. No, I don't, Warwick said with a firm voice. Doctor said it was because of PTSD. Jaakobah's lips curled into a smile. You know, being in the position of power that I'm in gives me certain privileges. When I go to pull strings among my followers, they tend not to need much tugging. Turns out I have a follower who lives by that little campground in Hickory Creek. Still happens to be on the police department as an admin worker. Still remembers you, so I have pictures no one else has. A cold feeling rushed through him. He suddenly felt like an animal, being hunted. He watched as Jaakobah pulled a manila envelope from a drawer in his desk. He began to pull a photo out, and panic flushed through Warwick. No, he boomed, standing up. No, I don't want to see it. His composure crumbled at the thought of seeing an image of the bodies. Before Warwick could shield his eyes, Jaakobah placed a photo on the desk in front of them. Warwick froze, forgetting how to breathe. That is an aerial photo of the crime scene, Jaakobah said. His fingertips rested on the corner of the glossy photo. but his eyes. "You noticed the marking, of course." Warwick's breath shook like he was locked in a freezer. In the photo, taken high above the campsite where his mother, stepfather, and brother were killed, he did indeed see the mangled, bloody mess that had once been his parents' tent. The police found their remains so crushed and torn they couldn't tell where, or even if, his brother was in the mess. Since he was only 7, authorities figured he'd been dragged away and eaten entirely. But the image that caught Warwick's eye wasn't the carnage. It was a symbol scorched into the ground of the entire campsite, so large it would have only been visible from above. It looked like a cross with a dark circle in the middle. The top, left, and right quadrants each contained 2 lines that curled upward from the center. The bottom 2 quadrants had lightning bolt shapes that met at the middle circle as well. Warwick had seen that symbol before. He saw it every time he looked in the bathroom mirror. The same shape sat on his back. It had appeared after his family's death. Warwick had always figured it was a strange scar left from the bear attack. "It's a sigil," Jaakobah explained, "a marking usually left behind." For a short time after the appearance of something powerful. Without realizing it, Warwick's hand reached to touch his back, to the spot where the scar was. Jaakobah's eyes flashed with intrigue as he watched Warwick's movement. "Did it mark you?" he asked. Warwick snapped his hand away. No, he said, then smiled. Jaakobah said, narrowing his eyes. "So, in looking at the photo, I think you can see why I believe you may not be telling me the whole truth." Jaakobah leaned toward him, smiling in a way that made Warwick uncomfortable. "I can help you, Warwick. Help you figure out what happened to your parents. Help you figure out and hone your gifts. All you have to do is trust me." It was then that Warwick realized he still had Jaakobah's ring in his hand. He went quiet for a moment, then looked at Jaakobah and smiled. Warwick spent hours every week at the casino dealing with scumbags and sleazeballs. And this reverend, with his lavish clothes and holier-than-thou attitude, was no different. "Yeah," Warwick said with a smirk. "Fat chance." With his fist tight around the ring, he turned and ran out the office. "Doctor." Jaakobah's voice boomed behind him as he plowed through the door. The receptionist, agile for her size, jumped up at the sound of Jaakobah's shouts and stepped into Warwick's path. He made a sharp turn toward the downward stairwell, hoping for a back exit. He checked every room for an exit, but found most of them locked or empty. His heart raced. Shouts from other voices rang behind him. He tried another door. This time, it finally unlocked. Warwick found himself in a bathroom. Toilet stalls sat on his left. To his right was a row of sinks along the wall. Behind that wall were the shower stalls. Warwick turned the lock on the metal deadbolt, trying to buy. Shouts from the guards roared behind the metal door as they pounded their fists, demanding he open it. Warwick's heart beat faster as he frantically searched for anything that could help him. There were no other doors, and the windows were too small to fit through. A loud bang hit the door as the frame began to crack. It seemed the guards had found something to ram it with. Warwick looked ahead, seeing his reflection staring back at him in the bathroom mirror. The door cracked more and more until a guard could finally reach his hand through. Warwick walked toward the mirror, placing his hands on the sink, doing the only thing left he could do. He steadied his mind and focused, letting his powers come to the surface. "Bloody Mary," he said. "Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary." 2 red eyes suddenly appeared in the mirror. The door finally burst open. The face of a haggard, demonic woman pushed forward from the other side of the mirror. The guards spilled in, and Warwick bolted around the sinks and behind the wall. He sat on the ground leaning against the wall. He covered his ears as Bloody Mary's shrill screech rang out, just below the desperate screams from the guards. Warwick shook under the squelching sounds of slit throats and smashed heads. Finally, the room went silent. Quietly, Warwick peeked from behind the wall. 5 guards lay on the floor, bleeding and lifeless. He caught a glimpse of Bloody Mary as she sank back into the mirror. Suddenly, his clothing no longer felt textured in the wall tiles. No longer felt cool on his hands. They were only pressure. He was thankful the roulette wheel had decided only to retake his sense of touch. Warwick made his way out of the room and rounded the corner of the hallway. Hope sprang through him at the sight of the red exit sign at the very end of the hall. He began to run, but found his attention pulled to a door on his left. The large window of the door showed a woman, Meliny, in the room, tied at her ankles and wrists by rope. "Hey!" she yelled with wide eyes from behind the door. "Help! Get me out of here!" Warwick's breath raced as panic rose within him. Reason screamed for him just to leave her there. He snapped his head behind him. Shouts from more guards rang out. Meliny scoffed at his hesitation. "Hey, asshole! Get me the fuck out of here!" she boomed. Warwick growled to himself. He knew he was running out of time. But his stupid, pesky conscience overtook reason. He ran into the room and pulled out a pocket knife. He went to cut the ropes, but at that moment, 2 guards entered the room. Warwick recoiled, but surprised everyone breathing in the room by not going down. He pulled out his trident, which had been in his pocket, snapped his wrist and sprang out the mighty baton. The 2 men paused at the sight of the weapon, just as Warwick had hoped. He used the attached pepper spray and hosed both men in the face. The blast blinded them, and Warwick made his escape. But even blinded, one of the men tackled Warwick. No matter how much punishment they dished out, Warwick gave it right back. He fought with all the reckless abandon of someone who can't feel pain. At one point, one of the goons said, "Why won't this asshole stay down?" Warwick launched the trident hard in his face, knocking him out cold. He fought his way to a standing position. Feeling no pain, he soon knocked the other guard out. He then quickly made his way to Meliny, cutting away at the ropes. "Look at you making time for a damsel in distress," Meliny said, sarcasm dripping from her words. Warwick groaned with irritation, partially due to his frustration with the ropes, and partially because she'd seen him consider leaving her. Finally, the ropes split and fell away. Warwick helped Meliny to her feet. He snapped his head toward the door at the sound of more voices coming their way. "We gotta go," he said, yanking her the rest of the way up. She sprinted out the door and he followed behind. Warwick tripped, losing his footing in the doorway. He unintentionally opened his hand, and Jaakobah's ring, once locked in his grip, bounced on the ground, rolling down the hallway. Warwick went to chase after it, but a new squad of goons had already made their way into the hall. "Fuck!" Warwick yelled to himself, knowing there was no hope of getting the ring back without heading straight into danger. "Let's fucking go!" Meliny yelled, already at the exit. Warwick growled to himself as he gave up on the fleeting idea of chasing the ring. He turned and sprinted toward the exit, out the door, and to his truck. He glared at Meliny as he passed her, hoping her rescue would be worth it. They jumped inside the truck. Warwick cranked the engine and peeled out of the parking lot, leaving their pursuers behind with not a moment to spare. Shortly after, Jaakobah made his way down to the basement to assess the aftermath of Warwick's escape. He saw 2 of his men sitting against a wall with bloodshot eyes. Each held a bag of ice to their heads. Several people milled about the bathroom. Jaakobah made his way through the crowd to see the massacre for himself. The mangled, shredded corpse of one of his newest guards lay on the floor. Blood pooled around him. Barrett came up behind him. "The boys managed to recover this," he said, handing Jaakobah his Zilberstein ring. Jaakobah let out a wicked smile as he took it and slipped it back onto his finger. "Thank you, Barrett," he said. "I knew the good Lord wouldn't allow that little thief to take this from me." Barrett looked down at the mangled corpse. People are saying we should call 911, he said in a flat voice. Don't think it'll do much for this guy, though. Name was Philip McKenney. Only next of kin was an ex-wife he hadn't seen in years. Jaakobah thought for a moment and then smiled. Philip was the kind of lost soul always drawn to his church. Now Philip was about to be more of an asset in death than he ever was alive. His death was a godsend. Wait 1 hour, Jaakobah said, then make the call. He left for his office, already thinking of how to spin this misery to his benefit. The phone call connected, and Stephanie Ficklin's uneasy voice answered. Hello? Reverend? Is that you? Even though she couldn't see him, he still plastered on a conniving smile as he spoke. That's correct. Stephanie, I'll just get right to it. I need you to come to my church as soon as possible. I need your help. Oh, Stephanie answered. Of course, anything for you. How can I help? I won't sugarcoat this because I know you can handle it, he said. We had a tragic death earlier today here at the church, and some horrific beatings. She gasped. What? Who? Where? She asked, stumbling over her words. He was always a skilled anglerfish, drawing in whatever he needed. Stephanie, desperate and stupid, would walk right into his fangs. He smiled as he said, What I need from you now is to be the first witness on screen and to tell the police how you found the body. We'll go over everything once you arrive. On the other side of town, Warwick drove his truck into his garage. He and Meliny sat quiet, wondering what the fuck just happened at the church. Questions racing in their minds. They were two strangers, bonded by the same bounty on their heads. Warwick's sense of touch returned as the adrenaline wore off and the aching of the growing bruises set in. Well, Warwick said, breaking the silence, that's enough. Excitement for one day. What do you think? He turned toward Meliny with an amused look. She greeted him with an open-mouthed stare, unable to process his sudden cheer. Come on, he said, nodding toward the garage door. Let's get inside. Cautious, she opened the car door and followed him in. Zukwick greeted them in her Australian Shepherd form. For that, Warwick was grateful. He wasn't sure if he could handle explaining a house yak pet in addition to Meliny's inevitable questions. He knew a barrage of questions sat on the horizon, but that story needed telling on a full belly and a night of sleep. Meliny stood there, soaking up the absolute carnage that sat around her. His house looked like a robbery gone wrong or an out-of-control DIY renovation. She could deal with some destruction. Anything was better than being bound in that cell. I like what you did to the place, she mocked. Thanks, he said, monotone, petting Zukwick. I'm using a new decorator. I'll give you her email. Meliny managed a weak smile and a soft chuckle. Warwick turned to her. They looked at one another in awkward silence. Meliny opened her mouth to say something, but Warwick cut her off. I know you're going to have a lot of questions, and I do too, he said, exhaustion setting in. But can we do this in the morning? I can't handle using my brain anymore today. He took a look at her beaten, rattled state and his bleeding knuckles. Plus, I think we could both use a shower. Meliny felt as though her legs would give way at any moment. An array of questions rattled in her mind, but she agreed. Yeah, she answered. Okay. He led her to the bathroom in the main bedroom, offering her the master bath while he took the guest bathroom. He handed her a shirt and gym shorts to change into. She snatched the clothes and swiftly entered the bathroom, locking the door. Okay, Warwick said. You're welcome, I guess. To the other bathroom, thinking a simple thank you from her would be nice. Warwick showered quickly, hardly able to scrub the dried blood off himself as his sense of touch finally returned. He gave up and gave himself a final rinse. He dressed, went to his liquor cabinet, and grabbed a bottle of whiskey. He put a kettle of water on the stove. Soon he had the makings of a hot toddy. Warwick put his drink together, then leaned against the kitchen island, holding the warm mug. He removed the lid from the small box, revealing his acupuncture needles. Exhaustion pulled heavily on his eyes, but he knew he had to push himself for one last enchantment for the day. The myth persists that a hot toddy and acupuncture needles can cure all illnesses and heal the body, which was ridiculous. But for Warwick, a little concentration could bring the folklore to fruition. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath, gathering all the energy left inside him. It flowed through his veins like a warm stream, enveloping every trace of magic inside him. He exhaled, feeling the energy rush down his arms, to his hands and into his drink and needles. He opened his eyes and took a sip. Already some of the pain had diminished, but in moments the quiet sounds in his home dissipated. Meliny emerged from the shower, Warwick's clothing hanging loose on her. With the shower pulling her out of her daze, she twinged at the sight of Warwick, finally taking him in. He still leaned against his kitchen island with a mug in his hand. He stood shirtless, dark purple bruises scattered around his body, along with seeping cuts and scrapes. It seemed that his quick shower failed to wash away the stream of dried blood on his scalp that had dripped down his back. His nose sat crooked, and she saw teeth missing when he smiled at her. She went to the other side of the kitchen island and leaned against it. "Jesus, dude," she said wide-eyed. "How the hell are you still breathing?" He kept smiling and shook his head. "Why are you smiling?" she asked, dumbfounded. But he couldn't hear a single sound coming out of her mouth. Doing a double enchant like that usually meant he would dull two senses. But as he thought of it, the roulette wheel, deciding which sense to hit, had spun twice, and both landed on the sense of hearing. So his hearing would be gone entirely for a while instead of just reduced. The more he took, the more the universe took back. He often wondered what would happen if he spun the wheel again. And it landed on hearing. Would he go permanently deaf? His power scared him. He didn't know the dangers or how potent they could be. Losing his gift of touch was a fortunate stroke of luck. Once again, his zigzag way of life, of not being prepared, got him in trouble. Warwick tried to respond, but the fight made his mind foggy. Despite the hot toddy beginning to work, he could feel every bit of the pounding he took. Meliny saw him struggle to speak. She looked around and walked over to what was left of the dresser. She found a pen and a pad of paper. She walked over to him and laid them down next to him. She wrote, "Take your time and tell me." He wrote back, "I'm sorry I can't hear you. I'm temporarily deaf." She turned the paper to read, and he lip-read her following words. "Weird," she paused and stared at him. Then a worried look overcame her. Her eyes widened, and then she wrote, "Can you not hear because of the head injury? Concussion?" He turned the paper to read and wrote back, "Too hard to explain. Like this, my hearing will be back in the morning." "I doubt that," Meliny said. She decided not to push it further too, exhausted to argue. Warwick gently pushed his drink to her and made a sipping motion. "I don't care for bourbon, but I'll take a vodka if you got it," she said absent-mindedly. Warwick took the pen and wrote, "Try it. Please, it will help." She read it and took the mug. She took a small sip and felt the liquid slide down her throat like a cool stream. The feeling turned warm as it hit her belly and rushed through her. The kink in her neck relaxed, and her wrists no longer felt the leftover bite of the rope. She took another sip, and more of the aches faded away. She looked at Warwick, bewildered. Before she could say anything, he pushed the box of needles toward her and wrote on the pad, "I need you to stab me." "What?" she said, her expression twisted with confusion. He sighed, annoyed and cranky. "Acupuncture." "It'll heal me," he wrote. Meliny looked at him with a furrowed brow, even more confused. He tried not to sigh again, understanding how weird this must be for her. "Please," he wrote, looking at her with eyes that begged her to understand. Meliny paused momentarily, wondering just how strange her day could become. "How do I do it?" she wrote back. He smiled, relieved. "Just stick them in a little bit and let it sit for a minute," he wrote. He picked up the box and placed it in her hand. Before she could protest or write anything back, he walked toward the couch and face planted on it. It felt like every nerve in his body screamed and every joint ached. He closed his eyes, waiting for the sweet relief of the needles. Meliny walked toward him, her feelings lost under the situation's absurdity. It seemed she'd been rescued by a madman who had a thing for strangers, stabbing him with needles. Strangers he trusted not to hurt him. For a moment, Meliny wondered if she should just leave. If she slept there, what would happen in the middle of the night? Would she wake up to a knife at her throat or him slipping under the covers? "Spine, please!" Warwick blurted out, a little too loud. His voice jolted Meliny out of her thoughts. Her mind went to horrid places, but her intuition, for the first time, didn't call for her to run. She knelt beside him and touched his back, letting him know she was there. Warwick let out a small gasp at the unexpected touch. Then his muscles relaxed under her palm. The first gentle touch he'd experienced in a while. A warm feeling stirred inside him that had nothing to do with his powers or the bourbon-laced beverage. Carefully, slowly, Meliny placed the tip of one needle on his spine. To her surprise and relief, he didn't flinch. He seemed to relax even further. She continued until all 32 needles stood in his spine and back muscles. Looked at her with half-lidded eyes, the left side of his face still pressed against the cushion. Warwick's energy faded. He did his best to mumble, "Tomorrow, promise," before his consciousness slipped away. Meliny looked at him, stunned and confused. He bent the fabric of her reality in new ways. She wanted answers, but after trying to nudge Warwick awake, only to be greeted with a snore, she knew those answers wouldn't come tonight. Meliny waited a minute, just like Warwick advised, then removed the needles and placed them back into the box. She turned to her left and found herself face to face with Zookwick, standing just a foot away, staring. She gasped, surprised. "Jesus, you scared me," she whispered. Then she smiled and asked, "Have you been here the whole time?" Zookwick looked over at Warwick, then back to Meliny. She let out a slight whine. "You're his little bodyguard, aren't you?" she said, giving her a pet behind the ear. Meliny stood and placed the box of needles on the kitchen island. Then she turned to see that Zookwick had taken her place on the floor next to Warwick. Seeing them together gave her a strange feeling of comfort and calm, things she hadn't experienced in a long time. She walked toward the bedroom but stopped in the doorway, looking back at him. Feelings of distrust and wanting to trust battled inside her. She returned to the couch, grabbed the throw blanket, and laid it over Warwick. Then she went to the bedroom, quietly closed the door, and locked it behind her. Warwick's eyes opened. A cold feeling flushed through him as he again found himself on his back. The sky had darkened again. Only the full moon seemed to emit any light. He sprang up, remembering he was in his 10-year-old body. He shook, knowing what was coming. His brother waved at him before running toward him. His brother ran and ran, but never came any closer, as if on a treadmill. The fire in the campsite behind him glowed a deep crimson red. His mother and stepfather stood on either side of the fire, hands held out and upward, as if calling something down. Their faces were caved inward and mangled, like they'd been stampeded upon. Warwick's breath hitched as another familiar noise came from his right. He fought hard not to turn his head, but he couldn't stop it. A creature stood in the clearing, just outside the trees. Its features were highlighted under the full moon, but shadows still claimed most of it. It stared at Warwick with red, unrelenting eyes. Then it moved. It stood. The massive creature grew tall. The moonlight and crimson glow danced over its obsidian black hooves and ram-like horns. Warwick tried to shut his eyes and remain still, but a force pulled. His face toward his brother and pried his eyes open. His brother's 7-year-old face was a foot from his. He gasped and wheezed as his eyes rolled into the back of his head. His jaw dropped, and a sickening squelch echoed as a circle rose in the flesh between his brows, like an invisible knife carving into his skin. A slice appeared across his brow, then down the center of his face. 4 more lines spread from the center circle. The air ripped from Warwick's lungs as he realized the bloody red shape on his brother's face was the same as the one on his back. The same sigil burned into the sand at the campsite. This time it was Warwick's scream that shattered the air around him. Warwick gasped, jolting awake, Meliny shaking him. She whispered frantically, "Warwick, wake up!" Warwick blinked as his wits returned. She was alarmed by the danger and worried Warwick was too. Injured to do much, but to her surprise, she found him fully healed. "Someone's trying to get into the house," Meliny whispered. "Can you hear me?" "What?" Warwick answered, quickly pulling himself together. "Someone's messing with all the windows and doors," Meliny continued. Movement by the window behind the couch caught his attention. The glass rattled slightly as fingers pressed against it, trying to push it up. Warwick turned to Meliny. "Grab Zoo," he whispered, "and be quiet." Meliny did as told. Warwick grabbed his phone and wallet, then Zukwick's leash and his trident off the wall. They quietly made their way to the garage. He didn't have proof, but he had a feeling Jaakobah wouldn't be too forgiving after Warwick tried to steal his ring, and did steal his prisoner. It had to be Jaakobah's goons. The garage door opened loudly and agonizingly. Jaakobah's men shouted and swarmed around the truck, demanding they surrender, hands yanking at the locked doors. Warwick revved the engine as a warning, then tore out of the garage as soon as the door was open enough. They sped down the road and into the desert, only stopping an hour outside the city once they were sure they weren't being followed. Colonial cabins. The studio-style rooms smelled of stale air and bleach, but Warwick would bet money on mold still lurking in the bathroom. A twin-size bed, a futon, and a 90s TV were the only luxuries. Warwick paid in cash just to be safe. He and Zukwick stepped inside, followed by Meliny. She closed the door, leaned against it, and crossed her arms. "Okay, I'm gonna need you to start telling me everything," she said with a glare. "And don't even think about doing whatever it is you did to make yourself deaf." Warwick sighed and sat on the bed. He placed a hand on Zukwick's head and scratched behind her ear, trying to figure out where to begin. Finally, he asked, "Are you a little bit superstitious?" "Sure," Meliny replied. "I never walk under ladders and I'm careful around mirrors. But things like luck? Nah, luck is just being prepared and putting yourself in the right place at the right time." Warwick nodded. "That's a very common sense approach." "Yeah," Meliny said. "I'm picking up on the fact that ain't how it works with you." Warwick continued. "Most, if not all, the superstitions in my life, absolutely real." Meliny raised a brow, head tilting in disbelief. Warwick continued again. "The drink I made last night and the acupuncture, that was me using my powers to manifest the superstition of those two things to promote healing." Meliny nodded, thinking. "So, let me get this straight," she said. "Any superstition is real for you?" Warwick nodded back. She continued. "So, if you had a black cat cross the road in front of you, you'd have bad luck?" "It's only happened once, and yeah," he answered with a chuckle. "Worst day ever." Meliny frowned and said, "There are hundreds, if not thousands, of superstitions. You wouldn't survive them all." "Man!" Warwick pulled out the necklace from underneath his shirt. Meliny tilted her head as she looked at it. "That's beautiful," she said. "A gift from my mother," Warwick explained. "It's pretty, but what makes it special is the enchantment I put on it." Meliny went quiet, unsure of how to respond. "I call it my dimmer. When I wear it, superstitions don't affect me. It allows me to live a normal life, which is exactly what I want." Meliny's jaw fell, stunned. "Well, why don't you enchant more items?" "Jesus, Warwick, do you know how rich and powerful that could make you?" Zukwick's whine overpowered their conversation. She looked up at Warwick with her front paws tapping away on the floor. It appeared it was time for a potty break. "Up for a walk?" Warwick asked. He looked for something in the cabin he could use for a leash. He finally came across some rope in the closet and grabbed his trusty trident. "What is that thing?" Meliny asked, puzzled. "Just in case of trouble," Warwick said, a little embarrassed. The two headed toward the door to gather Zukwick, but Zukwick had run out of patience and had turned into a goat. She gathered the strength to charge the door. "Whoa there, baby!" Warwick managed to get the rope on her and handed the leash to Meliny. The walking path was quiet and cool. Eventually, they found their way to a creek without encountering other people. They finally felt alone enough to continue their conversation. Meliny broke the silence, asking, "So what is the deal with your dog, goat, anteater?" Warwick explained that he hadn't been wearing his dimmer and was listening to a documentary on shapeshifters. When he got out of the shower, the damage was done. "Jesus," Meliny said as her eyes went wide. "You ever stop too? Think about how terrifying you actually are." "You see why I wear my dimmer constantly," he said. "My power, or curse, as I call it, is uncontrollable. and I think the power of this is wearing off. You never answered me when I asked you why you don't just enchant more items. That's the plan, he answered. That's what I'm trying to do anyway. I just learned yesterday that the designer of this pendant is named Yuri Zilberstein. I'm guessing if I can find more of his work, I can enchant it too. Why his stuff? No idea, Warwick answered. Jaakobah has a ring of his. That's why I met with him, and then I tried to take it. Melony's eyes went wide. Oh shit, that's why they were chasing you. Her brows furrowed as she hummed in thought. What? He asked. Nothing, Melony answered. A smile crept on her lips. I pegged. You was kind of a square. Guess I was wrong. I forgive you, Warwick replied, smiling back. So where are you going to get more of this Yuri guy's jewelry? She asked. Jaakobah said he got it from a guy named Dino. He owns a shop up in southern Colorado. I'm going to try to enchant them. I have an idea, Melony said, tilting her head in thought. You're going to enchant one for me. What? Warwick replied, eyes wide. Yeah, she said. I'm going to help you find your jewelry and then you're going to enchant one for me. Warwick's face bunched, puzzled. You heard what I said, right? I need them. I don't know when the dimming wears off. I might need all of them. Or how about this, Melony said, sass rising in her voice. You do what I want, or I call our reverend friend and tell him everything I know about you. Warwick's mouth twitched with a snarl. He went to speak, but Melony cut him off. Warwick Winters, 23 years old, June birthday, Gemini. Nice. Emergency contact, Damara Daring. Warwick's jaw dropped. Would you like me to recite her address and phone number? She said with a cocky smile and an upturn of her chin. Maybe you'd like to hear your social security number instead. How the fuck do you know all that? Warwick spat back. Dude, Melony said, I get that Zookwick destroyed all of your furniture, but don't keep your important documents in your dresser. Get a safe. They're harder for me to get into. You bitch, Warwick hissed. I know, she said with a smile. What makes you think I won't stop you from telling him? Warwick snapped back. You won't do anything to me, she said with confidence. You're not that type of person. I've been around men that hurt. You're not a man who hurts. Plus, I'm smart, so you'll need me on your treasure hunt. Warwick went silent, knowing he was defeated. They headed back to their shabby room. Well, good night, Melony said, ending the conversation as she slipped into the tiny bed. Hey, Warwick retorted, seeing his sleeping place be commandeered. Couch, she hissed. But I paid. Congratulations, she said with a cold voice and wrapped the blanket over herself. Warwick groaned to himself, anger rising as he watched Melony turn off the tableside lamp, leaving them in darkness, except for the nightlight spilling from the bathroom. He trudged his way over to the futon, fuming over Melony's blackmail. Melony had been in his life maybe 8 hours, and here she was, turning it completely upside down. The saying, "No good deed goes unpunished," sprang into his mind. He laid down on the futon. Exhaustion overcame him, but the memories of his recent dreams had him dreading falling asleep. The image of the bloody sigil being carved into his brother's face flashed in his mind over and over. Warwick pulled out the necklace from under his shirt and played with the pendant, a habit that arose while deep in thought. Then Warwick took the necklace off and placed the pendant in the palm of his hand. His eyes narrowed as he looked over at Melony on the bed, still fuming over their conversation. He inspected the pendant thoroughly, as though he'd never laid eyes on it before. He pulled up the web browser on his phone and decided to spend his sleepless nights searching the hundreds of message boards he had before, looking for any clues as to where more of Zilberstein's works may be. He wanted to release himself from the bindings of the trickster mage that he regretted setting free. Eventually, Warwick slipped into sleep hours later, as the necklace in his palm slipped onto the floor. Dino Velope's Mercedes pulled into his driveway after a long day at the store. Warwick's phone call played over and over in his mind. It didn't sit right with him that he was associated with Jaakobah. Jaakobah came into his store one day with plenty of backup to take the Zilberstein ring. Dino let him have it for free since Jaakobah ever so nicely threatened to remove a finger and burn his store down if he didn't. Dino shuddered. Warwick didn't seem like the kind of man to do such a thing. He hoped Warwick knew what he was getting into by being tied up with Jaakobah. Still, Dino didn't feel bad as he wondered what jewelry he had lying around at home that he could pawn off as a Zilberstein original. Out of town shows up promising a nice profit margin. Dino was always happy to take advantage. In fact, besides one silly girl wanting a ring she couldn't find or afford, he hadn't pulled a shady deal on a local in years. He walked up to his front door and fished out his keychain, cursing under his breath. His keychain could make a school janitor blush. Dino had storage sheds holding inventory all over town. It always took him a minute to find his house key, but he got it and went inside. "Is that you?" his wife Mia called from the living room. "Who the hell do you think it is jingling keys outside the door for 5 minutes?" Dino said, annoyed. She usually came to open the door to spare him the aggravation, unless it was 8 o'clock at night when her favorite show was on. Sure enough, as he entered the living room, she was wrist-deep in a bag of Cheetos, watching some reality show. Dino just grunted and shot her a nasty look behind her back. He went to the fridge for a beer and headed to the garage. He walked up to a big tool drawer box and started yanking drawers, open at random while sipping his beer. While digging through his stock of rings in one of the bedroom storage drawers, his rotund 8-year-old son Dylan and his annoying little friend Chad bounced into the garage, their small mutt Spotty tagging along. "Dad!" Dylan shouted, mouth smeared with whatever chocolate candy he'd had that day. "Tell us the legend of Goatman again. Chad doesn't think it's true." Dylan's appetite for stories was almost as big as his appetite for food. Usually, his constant need for entertainment grated on Dino's nerves, but today Dino was in a good mood. He was about to make an excellent score. He looked at Chad and said with a mischievous grin, "You don't believe in the Goatman?" "The Goatman legend comes from my hometown in Texas," he said. "About 100 years ago, a goat farmer was killed in the town by Klansmen. Now the Goatman returns as a dark, angry spirit, half man, half goat, seeking revenge for his lynching. He is stuck in the fade, looking for the next fool to summon him. So if you ever see the Goatman, just make sure you ain't the last one alive. He might just drag you to the underworld." Chad stared wide-eyed. Dylan was a different case. He rolled his eyes. He'd heard scarier stuff on YouTube. "You think it's true?" Chad asked Dylan, voice shaking. Dylan knew it was BS. His dad had told him about the time he and his friends tried summoning the Goatman on a dare. His dad had been a terrified little kid when his dad first told him the legend. When they went to the creek, they turned their backs and chanted, "Goatman, Goatman, Goatman." They waited like idiots for something to jump out and kill them. As soon as one kid twitched, all three ran like hell back to the house. "Yeah, I think it's true," Dylan said, like he was some kind of expert. He had no more clue than his dad had back then, but he loved riling up his scaredy cat friend. He smirked at Chad. "Want to go try summoning it?" Chad said, looking away. "Aw, come on," Dylan said. He snatched Chad's hand and dragged him out of the room. They made their way to the back door. "Wait!" Don't be a pussy, Chad." "Dylan!" Mia and Dino shouted. But their yelling went ignored as the screen door slammed behind. A burst of giggles. Mia groaned from the couch, rubbing her temples. "That boy's gonna give me an aneurysm," she muttered. Dino scoffed under his breath and kept digging through the dresser. Drawers. "One can only hope," he said to himself. He huffed and muttered as he searched for a counterfeit ring he'd forged some time ago. "What did you lose, you idiot?" Mia asked. Dino took the insult on the chin. He just wanted to find the damn ring, settle with Warwick for a good payout, and finally relax. "That Zilberstein counterfeit I made a while back. You seen it?" Mia knew all about his shady business. Hell, she was the one who came up with half the ideas. "That guy again?" she said. "Why's he been so popular lately?" "Don't know," he answered. But if he's gaining heat, I can see why. Dude had a technique that made patterns in silver. Absolutely stunning. To this day, nobody's been able to copy them perfectly. Not even me. I can get damn close, though. Huh, she said. Well, if he was so famous, how come I've never heard of him? He died after only a couple years in business, Dino said. Fire broke out. He and 7 others were killed. Out in the backyard, Dylan and Chad stood by the creek at the edge of the property. Dew from the recent rains soaked into their sneakers. So, how exactly do we do it? Chad asked. We gotta stand here at the creek, turn our backs, and say his name. 3 times, Dylan said, beaming. Ready to try it? I guess, Chad mumbled. They turned their backs to the water. Goatman! 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 A few silent moments passed before a terrible stench filled the air. A chilling wave of energy pulsed through their bodies, causing them to shiver uncontrollably. Their breaths caught in their throats as an icy dread settled deep in their bones. Slowly, cautiously, the 2 of them turned around. His stomach dropped as he saw 2 massive horns slowly emerging from the cracked earth. Not long after, 2 glowing red eyes appeared, burning with an otherworldly menace. They didn't wait to see what fully materialized from the portal in the ground. A scream tore from their lips, sharp and desperate. They bolted, instincts screaming at them to flee. They knew what lurked beyond the portal, and they knew what would happen if it caught them. Behind them, a bone-chilling roar echoed, shaking the very air. Screams erupted again as they scrambled towards the safety of the house. Chad's heart pounded violently in his chest as he watched Dylan slip on the slick, wet grass. Time seemed to slow. Just as Dylan fell, a massive clawed hand shot out, wrapping around him. The sickening crunch of bones shattered beneath the monstrous grip echoed in the night. Tears streamed down Chad's face as panic overtook him. He sprinted through the door, his screams cracking under the weight of horror, his sobs shaking his entire body. Mia and Dylan rushed to him, eyes wide with alarm. What's wrong? What happened? They demanded. Before Chad could form words, the back door exploded inward, sending splinters flying. The goatman had followed its second prey relentlessly, showing no sign of slowing. Its immense form tore through the door and frame, pushing the house's entrance back by over a foot on each side. The entire house trembled with the force of its arrival. Without hesitation, the goatman swung its colossal arm, striking Chad's body and slamming him against the wall with crushing power. His body squelched and burst under the immense pressure, unable to withstand the brutal force. Mia screamed, the sound raw and desperate. The goatman turned its burning gaze toward her. With a terrifying leap, it lunged forward, jaws wide and snapping. It clamped its teeth around her skull, and her body went limp as he crushed her completely between his jaws. Trying to rise onto its hind legs, the goatman stumbled, slipping, on the pooling blood slicking the floor. Suddenly, Dino appeared, consumed by a fiery vengeance fueled by the loss of his son and wife. Without hesitation, he charged forward, emitting a guttural, primal scream that filled the room with raw fury. He threw his right fist back and landed a heavy punch on the side of the beast's massive jaw. A trickle of blood seeped from the creature's mouth, but the goatman regained its footing. Though the house's low ceiling prevented it from standing fully upright, it used what little leverage it had, snapping its head forward with brutal force. The savage headbutt crushed every bone in Dino's upper body. Dino slumped to the floor, gasping his last breath. The goatman didn't pause to savor the kill. As the dark command from the hellish realm that birthed it tugged at its essence, it retreated toward the portal, disappearing back into the shadows. Hey, dumbass, Melanie's voice echoed through the cramped cabin. Warwick awoke with a jolt, feeling a rough shove against his shoulders. Wah! He muttered, still half lost in the fog of sleep as he struggled to open his eyes. Dumbass, Meliny repeated, smacking him hard with a pillow. Warwick was not a morning person, and being roused so abruptly only deepened his grogginess. His vision finally cleared enough to see Meliny standing over him, arms akimbo. What the fuck is your problem? He snapped, already nursing a headache from just a few hours' sleep. His back ached from the creaky futon beneath him. Could a single night on a futon give you scoliosis? Warwick was beginning to think so. Meliny held out his necklace with one hand while resting the other on her hip. "Aren't you supposed to be wearing this?" His eyes widened. "Oh shit!" he exclaimed, snatching it out of her hands and hastily putting it back on. "Oh shit is right," Meliny said sharply. "If I start turning into a leprechaun or some shit, I'm gonna be pissed." Warwick narrowed his eyes at her. "Yeah, a frigid harpy is more your vibe." She retaliated with another pillow smack. "Get up," she demanded, then strode back over to the bed to replace the pillow. "Zoo's already been walked. I want to get moving since we have to drive all the way to fucking Colorado." "Glad to see you got a good night's sleep," he sneered. "I did actually," she said with an exaggerated stretch. "I feel refreshed." "Glad that makes one of us," he muttered, pouting. After some goofing around from Warwick and more complaining from Meliny, they finally hit the road toward the small Colorado town to meet Dino. Warwick could barely contain his excitement about Item. The possibilities seemed endless. With enchanting and superstition at his command, he imagined some old wives' tales might not hold up, but others could work like magic. The town was small but anything but sleepy. As they drove through the bustling downtown shopping district, they saw people milling about, giving the place a lively energy. At the end of Main Street stood the Pickle Barrel. They pulled into a parking spot directly in front of it. The aroma from a Mexican restaurant next door made Warwick's stomach rumble. A woman in a dirty apron stood outside, absorbed in her phone. Approaching the door, they found the closed sign hanging on the front. Warwick checked the business hours and the various decals plastered across the glass. Frustration flared inside him. "What the shit?" he muttered. "It's supposed to have opened like 3 hours ago. Where is he?" "Today's not a holiday, right?" Meliny asked. "No," Warwick replied thoughtfully. "Fuck. Maybe he's on a lunch break." Warwick didn't have time for breaks or absenteeism. He pounded on the glass. "Dino! Hey, Dino!" "Knock it off, dude. You look crazy," Meliny scolded. The woman on the phone ended her call and looked up. "You looking for Dino?" she asked. "Yeah," Warwick answered. "He never showed up today," she said flatly. Warwick's irritation deepened. "Do you know why?" "No," she said with a bitter snarl. "And I don't give a shit. You shouldn't either. That guy's a fucking fraud." Warwick winced at her words. "What do you mean?" "Nearly screwed my daughter Sarah and son-in-law out of 10 grand, she said. She commissioned him to find a wedding ring. She was so excited when he called her, saying he'd found it. But when she went to pick it up, he showed her a ring she already had. He rotates all his stuff on the displays to make it look like he's moving inventory. But it's all just sitting there. That fucker just grabbed a ring from his stock, waited a week, and called her, saying it was ready. And then he wanted double what she remembered the price was." Warwick's stomach sank. "You gotta be fucking kidding me." "Nope," the woman said firmly. "Sarah spent hours studying every ring in his store. They had a small budget for the wedding, and she knew exactly how much she could afford. She wanted a particular style, but couldn't find it anywhere else. The ring Dino tried to sell her wasn't it." Warwick seethed. After all this bullshit, Dino was going to turn out to be a fraud. His jaw clenched. "I did not drive 9 fucking hours just for him to scam me like this," he snarled. "Well, shit," the woman said with a chuckle. "If you want, I'll show you where he lives. Just do me a favor. Scare him so badly that he closes his shithole shop up forever." Warwick weighed every option and his reaction if he showed up at the dishonest merchant's house and found a fraud. He decided it wouldn't end up too bloody. He answered, "Oh, absolutely. He lives up on Snob Hill," she said. Warwick had an address but didn't know where it was. He said a silent prayer to the GPS gods. "Snob Hill?" he asked, clueless. "Yeah," she answered. "Go back up Main Street like you're leaving town. It's that big hill 10 miles back. Has all the big-ass houses on it. All the rich assholes in town live there. He's the White House with the long driveway and turquoise fence. If Dino were trying to pawn off a substitute item, Warwick would know, and he would be furious. He bounced around the idea of grabbing Dino by his neck and tossing him off Snob Hill. Warwick snickered at the thought, but the reality was he could probably do it. They thanked the woman and left. They followed his GPS up Snob Hill. Soon they found it. Dino had a long driveway that was an offshoot from the main road. At the end of the driveway, the GPS led them to Dino. Warwick parked and jumped out of the truck, fuming at the realization that he and Dino had traveled all this way in the likelihood that Dino would try to scam him. He marched up to the front door, with Meliny and Zukwick following closely behind him. "Dino!" Warwick said as he pounded his door. "Dino, I need to talk to you." After a minute with no response, Warwick put his hand on the doorknob. "What are you doing?" Meliny hissed at him. "You're gonna get us shot." But Warwick ignored her concerns and opened the door anyway. The home was eerily quiet and still. A breeze blew throughout the house, and they felt a creeping feeling that something might be wrong. "Dino?" Warwick asked in a softer voice. Meliny looked at him warily as they still received no response. Zukwick let out a slight whine. Warwick took a few cautious steps into the house, the floorboard creaking underneath him. His heartbeat rose in his ears, and anxiety tightened around his chest. Something wasn't right. The house was warm and muggy, and too much noise from the outside filled its walls. They stepped into the doorway, and Warwick's blood ran cold. The shattered, mutilated bodies of Dino, Mia, and Chad lay cold. In the kitchen, blood lay still and thick upon the floor. Warwick shook. Flashes of other mutilated bodies rose in his mind. He clutched his head as a sudden searing pain shot from his skull and down his spine. He cried out in pain. "Warwick?" Meliny asked. "Warwick, what's wrong? What's happening?" Warwick's eyes rolled upwards as the searing pain coursed through every nerve in his body. He fell to the floor, and his vision went dark. Warwick remembers his family, dying and camping memory resurfaces. 10-year-old Warwick stared out the car window as they neared the campsite. His stepdad had grown up in the small town of Latana, Texas. Every summer, they made the road trip out there for a family vacation at his favorite campsite. It was rare they did anything as a family, but just like every year, Warwick wasn't excited. Usually, Charlie did nothing but work, eat, and vanish into his room. But on these trips, Mom and Charlie actually smiled at each other, which was rare. They set up camp as the sun dipped low on the horizon. Warwick asked if he and his brother could ride their mountain bikes until dark. "Just stay away from the old Alton Bridge," Charlie warned, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "You don't want to run into the Goat Man." "What's that?" Warwick asked. "The Goat Man's a legend around here," Charlie said. "He roams the creek by the bridge, looking for his next victim. Anyone who dares say his name 3 times with their back turned to the creek either gets devoured or taken." Warwick and his brother stared, wide-eyed. The uneasy darkness in the woods made the story hit different. "I dare you to try it," Charlie smirked. Warwick and his brother exchanged excited looks. With a little nod from their mom, they set off toward the creek not far from camp. But just before they passed the tree line, Warwick stopped by one of the trees and looked back to see if Mom was watching. She wasn't. She was focused on the campfire with Charlie. Warwick saw his chance. He was tired of always wearing that necklace. He doubted what his mom had told him anyway. Sure, she broke her back years ago, but that could have just been bad luck. Charlie always said magic wasn't real. What better way to prove it than to summon an urban legend and have nothing happen? No! He slipped off the necklace and hung it on a small branch, then raced to catch up with his brother. They reached the bridge. Nervous excitement rushed through them as they stood facing away from it. "Goatman! Goatman! Goatman!" they chanted. Silence. The woods stayed still. The seconds stretched. "Man, this is lame. I knew it wasn't true," his brother muttered. But Warwick grinned. He knew he was right. He couldn't wait to rub it in when they got home. Night fell. The fire dimmed. His parents turned in, and Warwick and his brother crawled into their tent. Later, Warwick woke up needing to pee. He was warm in his cheap Walmart sleeping bag, but the urge won. He tried not to wake his brother. He slipped one foot over, then accidentally stomped on his brother's head with the other. "What?" his brother mumbled. "Pee," Warwick said. His brother rolled over and went back to sleep. Warwick stepped out and walked toward a tree, out of sight. He leaned forward. Then something cold brushed his face. It was the necklace. He'd forgotten it was still hanging there. A chill ran through his body. He turned and froze. A tall, hulking silhouette stood by the tents. At least 8 feet tall, with thick muscle and horns adding another 2 feet. Barrel-chested, power in every inch. It was real. The Goat Man. Warwick had never known fear until now. There was no other reason it'd be there. They'd summoned him, for real. With pure rage, the beast stormed the tents. Warwick watched in horror as it stomped through the center of his mom and Charlie's tent. The ground shook, rattling the tree next to him. It hit him. His mom was gone. Nothing could survive that. He felt something leave him, like his strength drained out and poured into the earth. Then the beast lifted its foot from her corpse, slammed it down. Again, and twisted its heel like he was putting out a cigarette. Then, its head snapped toward Warwick. He nearly puked. The goatman charged. Warwick scrambled to grab the necklace. His hands shook. Just as the goatman's hand touched him, Warwick yanked the necklace free and threw it on. Pain exploded through his back, and everything went dark. Warwick snapped out of the memory, gasping. His heart thundered in his chest. The bloody image of Dino's family mirrored the horror he just remembered about his own. He stumbled out of the house, breath shallow, skin hot. Meliny jumped out of the car when she saw his face. "What's wrong? What happened?" she called. But Warwick didn't answer. He pulled out his phone, certain now that Demara had something to do with the memory. She was his nurse, the one who insisted on hypnosis in the hospital. He had to know why. The phone rang. She answered. "Hi, baby," she started, but Warwick cut her off. "You lied to me," he roared. Silence. "I know what happened," he said through ragged breaths. "I know. Who? What killed them? And I know you know. Why did you lie?" Another pause. "I did it to protect you," Demara finally said, her voice cracking. "Are you fucking kidding me?" Warwick spat. "From what?" "From yourself, Warwick," she said softly. Now it was Warwick who stayed quiet. She took a shaky breath. The air between them changed. "Because the goat man was only there because of you. When you summoned him as a joke, you brought him into this realm. For real." Her voice dropped to a whisper. I didn't. You. No dash. That it was my fault," Warwick said, his stomach dropping into an icy pit.